Huge penalty for Mercedes after FIA exposes new evidence got leaked. So we're going to be going through that and 3 other stories in today's video. So make sure to like this video, and if you want more Mercedes news content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel by hitting that red button down below. The first story is new notes have been revealed in regard to Mercedes DQ from George Russell. Andrew Shovlin notes of initial findings of Mercedes regarding George Russell's disqualification from F1 Belgian GP, as he adds on strategy as well. The one thing that all F1 teams and drivers dread post-race is the technical checks and if the car is legal or not in racing conditions. Any small infraction can lead to disqualification, which is what happened to Mercedes and Russell in Belgian GP. One getting disqualified from a points finish is painful, but add a podium to that, it enhances the pain. The worst case is getting disqualified after winning a F1 race, and Russell and Mercedes had to go through that pain after an excellent show at Spa. Russell mastered the one-stop strategy to win while putting off Lewis Hamilton and Oscar Piastri behind. But all his work went in vain after his car didn't fulfill the minimum weight criteria, falling short by 1.5 kilos, which resulted in sure disqualification. There was nothing that Mercedes could have done to prevent it, apart from analyzing what went wrong. The strategy and tire wear was mooted as one of the reasons, but they are still to get into the details with the investigation on at Brackley. Shovlin noted that both Russell and Hamilton started the race with no trouble per se, but high tire wear for the former caused a problem to him. He lost more material on the plank, as they found out in the initial analysis, with more to continue on. In addition to the weight, Shovlin explained the decision to switch to one stop for Russell and why not for Hamilton, who was in the lead of the race at that time, which played a crucial role. Naturally, the result was bittersweet, despite Hamilton inheriting the win. Issue with Russell's car. Shovlin. It was obviously very disappointing and unfortunate, particularly after he had driven such a strong race to win from so far back. We are trying to understand exactly what happened. A lot of that involves us getting the weights of all the different components. The car can lose quite a lot of weight during the race. You get tire wear, plank wear, brake wear, oil consumption. The driver themselves can lose a lot, and in this particular race, George lost quite a bit of weight. The cars started the race the same weight. Lewis and George were both weighed after qualifying. The cars were within 500 grams. George's car was the only one that had the problem, and it is because things like the tire wear was much higher. It looks like we lost more material on the plank. We will collect all that data, though. Look at how we can refine our processes, because clearly we do not want that to happen in the future. In terms of pace at the start of the race, it is nil, because George's car and Lewis's car start the race at the same weight. Obviously, as George's car was losing weight faster than Lewis's throughout the race, there is an associated gain with that. But you are into the hundredths of a second per lap. It will be very small because when you are talking about amounts like 1 or 2 kilos, they do not amount to a lot of lap time. But as I said, at the start of the race, the cars were the same weight. Strategy switch. Shovlin. It was a decision that was taken by the strategy team. In Lewis's case, it was a fairly simple decision to make his pit stop because he was leading the race and he had Leclerc behind. Leclerc was not within undercut range, but when he stopped on fresh rubber, he would have undercut us if we had not brought Lewis in. When you are leading a race and the car in P2 stops, it is completely normal that you make sure you cover that because that is how you hold track position, and he was one of the significant threats. George did not have as much to lose. Had we stopped George at about that same point as we did Lewis, he was forecast to finish somewhere around 5th or 6th place. Maybe he would have got 4th, but we were expecting him to be able to get Sergio, but he was still in that same battle that he was in before with Max and Lando. If we stayed out longer, that was what would then put George in contention for a podium position. He was very helpfully telling us that the tires had stabilized. They did not feel like they were dropping, and he asked if we felt a one-stop would be on the cards. Based on the wear we had seen in the earlier stops and in Lewis's middle stint, we could see that it was viable that you would be able to get to the end of the race with rubber. He obviously did a great job hanging on to them. It was not our plan on Sunday morning to do that strategy, but it was a good reaction by the strategy team and by George himself during the race to adapt to what we were seeing, the lower degradation, and capitalize on that. The third story is Mercedes reveal F1 upgrade U-turn after clearly introducing some problems at Spa. Mercedes plan to run their new F1 upgrades when the season resumes later this month at the Dutch Grand Prix. After introducing a new floor and other new parts, on Friday at the Belgian Grand Prix, Mercedes reverted back to their Silverstone specification. This was because Mercedes struggled for pace at Spa-Francorchamps, encountering bouncing and high-speed corners. Initially, there were suggestions that Mercedes were hit with the bouncing problem, like Ferrari have been due to their new floor upgrade. However, trackside engineering chief Andrew Shovlin doesn't think the upgrades were totally to blame for their problems. "We are planning to do that," he said in the team's latest post-race debrief video. "The reason we reverted the car to the Silverstone spec on Friday night was because we had a good race in Silverstone. Spa and Silverstone are not dramatically different circuits in terms of the corner speed range that you are dealing with. We had clearly introduced some problems somewhere. We think that was largely due to how we were running the car in Spa, not induced by the updates themselves. That was giving us a bit of bouncing in the high-speed corners, as well as a few issues with the balance. Going to that Silverstone car got it all back to normal. It proved to be a master stroke, as Lewis Hamilton clinched his second victory of the 2024 F1 season after Mercedes took a 1-2 on track before George Russell's disqualification. Mercedes will use the summer break to look at the data, as they plan to reintroduce them at Zandvoort. We have since had time to look at the data to understand what it was that we did, and we are pretty confident that we will be going for a reintroduction in Zandvoort," he added. "Only Red Bull have won more races than Mercedes in 2024, a remarkable turnaround given they failed to finish on the podium up until the Canadian Grand Prix in June. Mercedes' confidence has been restored after winning 3 races before the summer break. Their rivals have been warned. George Russell's win in Austria, Lewis Hamilton's first win in 3 years at Silverstone, then another last weekend at Spa, means Mercedes have won 3 of the past 4 Grands Prix. Red Bull's previously dominant Max Verstappen has not won in 4 rounds, worryingly for the championship leader. Russell initially crossed the line first for a Mercedes 1-2 at the Belgian Grand Prix before an unfortunate disqualification gave the victory to teammate Hamilton. They had a difficult Friday, Stoffel van Dorn, the Aston Martin reserve driver, commented on the F1 Nation podcast. "Look at Lewis's season. He often has a difficult Friday because he's a driver who likes to play with the car's tools and its setup. He gets an understanding of how the systems work then. Come Sunday, his mind is in the zone. He knows the car available to him, and he deals with that. We've seen him much stronger on race day than his qualifying performance, although they are still very good. He's an incredible racer with a good feel for the tires. So did George, managing them perfectly and crossing the line first." The second story is Mercedes ahead of schedule with W15 exceeding F1 2024 performance targets. Andrew Shovlin has revealed the Mercedes W15 has exceeded expectations in F1 2024 after the team had targeted winning races only towards the end of the season. After suffering their first winless season in 11 years in 2023, Mercedes followed a new development path under the technical leadership of James Allisson in F1 2024. Mercedes W15 progress assessed at halfway stage of F1 202. Following a tricky start to the season, the team have emerged as consistent frontrunners since a new front wing was introduced at the Monaco Grand Prix, with Lewis Hamilton and George Russell winning 3 of the last 4 races between them. The W15 has also claimed 2 pole positions, with Russell qualifying fastest of all in Canada and Britain. Appearing on Mercedes' post-race debrief show following the Belgian Grand Prix, trackside engineering director Shovlin lifted the lid on the team's brilliant response to their early season woes. And he revealed the team had only hoped to challenge for victories and pole positions at the end of the season, with Mercedes now back to really enjoying the racing, following their recent upturn in performance. He said, "The main thing is the progress. Where we were in the early races in Bahrain and in Jeddah, it was difficult to look at the car and understand what it was you had to do to make it quick. We could see it had certain strengths, but it also had plenty of weaknesses. The team has responded brilliantly to that challenge. We know where we want to get to in terms of performance level. We knew that we wanted to be winning races, and we set ourselves a target of by the end of the season, we wanted to be qualifying on pole and winning races. We have now had 3 wins in the last 4 races. We have had 6 podiums on the trot. That has perhaps been more than we had expected at that point.